I couldn't finish this movie. This is the first one now on our channel where I legitimately could not finish. And when we get around to that scene that completely put me off, we'll talk about that further. But yeah, I couldn't finish it.
I'm so curious to hear which scene it is. But yeah, we can wait. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so welcome back, everybody. My name is George, and with me is Chris. And today we are looking at the completely impossible to be controversial movie, God's Not Dead. Before going in, I thought it was just a movie about college kid, who's Christian, goes to a university, and has a professor who goes out of his way to force all the students to be atheist, I guess, or proclaim that they are. And then it's sort of maybe a modern David versus Goliath telling.
Right.
It is that, but there's more to it. There's a lot of other subplots that shows, I guess, conversion, if that's the right way to put it. Yeah.
Right off the top, it is an extremely amateurish looking movie. It's not like a terrible looking movie in any way. It just kind of looks like a really cheap TV movie, and they start off with these kind of awkward establishing shots and that cross dissolve between one another. It's very interesting because this was theatrically released, and I think relatively widely theatrically released, and it's just way below the standard.
God wants someone to defend him.
Don't be ridiculous.
Only a real risk tests the reality of belief.
I knew going in that it was a Christian propaganda movie. What I didn't realize is that it's propaganda not meant for converting people. It's propaganda meant for believers.
Right.
It is a movie to reinforce people who are already worshipers and make them feel better.
That's right.
So our main character, Josh Whedon, is supposed to be a already idyllic, perfect Christian, and that he just kind of walks through this quote unquote valley of challenges from all these different people and changing them instead. This is the ultimate imaginary shower argument movie.
That's right.
Everyone in this movie will say the perfect thing for this character to rebuke them in the exact word that they would want to do, that they imagine, fantasize. The problem is that nobody actually talks like this in real life. No, all the challenges that he gets thrown at don't exist in the real world.
This movie definitely exists in a bizarro universe, and I'm not even talking about the way the politics of the movie are set up. Just the way people act is totally alien to anything I've ever experienced in my life.
No one goes out of their way to be that aggressive, only except in the mind of somebody who is having a power fantasy about, this is what I totally would say.
Yes, that's the movie.
If only
this is what I totally would say. Yeah, that's right. Which I do want to say is not inherently wrong as a film. I talk about Death Wish constantly on this channel. I don't know why that happens, but revenge action movies, for instance, are another example of the same dynamic you're talking about.
Yeah.
The Death Wish format is the exact same thing, where it's oh man, if someone tried to attack my family, I would pull out 2 guns and I would jump sideways while shooting them in slow motion. That's just how it would happen, and you get to fantasize about that and think oh yeah, I'm so awesome, and I'm potentially so awesome.
The problem with that is that in those power fantasy, revenge fantasy, the bad guys are coming in with equal, if not greater, weaponry and danger.
Right.
So then the fantasy is that I would totally still kick their ass. The equivalent of that in this movie would be a home intruder comes to your house with a knife while you already have a shotgun.
That's right, because Sorbo is the least challenging antagonist imaginable.
What does PRC stand for?
People's Republic of China.
Oh. Seriously?
Oh, yes. Always serious.
The People's Republic of China. Now, I just want to clarify. As somebody who was born in the PRC, there is no document that actually just says PRC. It just says China. And if he filled it in himself, he would definitely just write China.
PRC is for the Chinese rap songs where they're all my homies in the PRC. Throw your hands in the... Yeah, okay. I just feel every moment of these characters, it feels like you can imagine some dusty old white guy being like, what do you think a Chinese would say here?
I mean, we'll get to it later, but he's entirely set up to be like, I guess, like the Eastern heathens who don't know anything about Jesus. Who's
Just
then
wait,
converted.
just wait, audience, until we get to his dad.
Yeah,
It's pretty special.
I feel like, okay, so my grandmother has never left the province that she was born in China, right? But I feel like she knows more about Western religion than somebody in this movie would know about her.
You're beautiful. I wish you didn't have to do that.
It's from my father. He's very traditional.
Dean Cain, Superman himself, who is now business guy. He's like, he kind of represents like the evil capitalist guy who's kind of soullessly just out for himself. And he's introduced on the phone doing business, which is great. He's like, buy as much as you can on margin. We've gotten wind of a merger and the Japanese could care less about insider trading. You're gonna thank me for this one, I guarantee it. That's the end of his business phone call.
You know, actually, now that you mention all this, the evil capitalist, his girlfriend, who's, I guess, like the annoying vegan
/ liberal blogger.
The Chinese guy, the Muslim girl, all this screams to me a writer, director who's never interacted with anybody else
Right.
but their own close little circle. So then this is what they imagine these people must be like.
There's a lot of just sort of the same thing as when a 20-year-old director writes and directs an action movie and all the gangster characters make no sense because they've obviously never been around that sort of person.
Exactly, yeah. So this is just, somebody who has no experience in anything outside of their own little bubble and has never talked to another person of another ethnicity, religion, culture, or even like position in society.
Yeah, like social class or anything.
Refuse to waste our limited time together debating the existence of the big man in the sky, the myth of a benevolent, all-powerful, supernatural being.
The professor makes everyone write out God is dead on a piece of paper. Now, I haven't taken every class of every university ever, but as far as I know, as far as I can tell, I don't think there are any classes or professors that goes out of their way to preach and dissuade you from religion itself, because there's no converting to atheism because it's a lack of belief. So what this professor is doing in like a snake pit scenario that sets up this, here's our Goliath, it doesn't exist.
One other thing that doesn't exist is a chalkboard, a whiteboard anywhere in any university with a list of philosophers on it that includes Ayn Rand. This guy starts the first class by defining atheism and just sort of ranting about it, which is not a thing that happens anywhere ever. His explanation for why they can all sign the God is dead thing is that if they all do it, he'll be able to just skip part of the course, which is also not a thing that ever happens. So they set up these debates, and he says, but if you fail the debates, you're going to fail this section of the course. I saw that they had an apologetics researcher in the intro. It would have been good to maybe have an academics researcher too.
The introduction to this class, 2 students just got up and left, right? One of them realizes he was in the wrong class. The other one went, I actually have to do work in this class. I'm leaving, because he just wanted an easy credit, right? Which means that our main character could also have just done the same thing.
That's true. Yeah.
As soon as the professor announces, I want everybody to write God is dead, he could have just went, this is against my belief. I'm just going to leave.
Ironically, the argument that Duck Dynasty guy makes about his show, I think we're underselling probably how hilarious and mustache twirly Kevin Sorbo is too. Like he just comes in so hot.
Yeah. But it's so ineptly mustache twirly too.
Yeah,
like, it's like Powerpuff Girls villainy.
Yeah. He's collecting the, obviously all the rest of the students are like, yeah, screw it, God's not dead, signature, good. He picks up one, and he's like, oh, this one has a lowercase g. Maybe it ought to get extra credit.
In that classroom, there is a God, and yet I'm him. I'm also a jealous God, so do not try to humiliate me in front of my students.
You gotta assume that there's other students in the class that have other religions.
It's a little bit confusing. He's going to be talking to a pastor a little bit later, and the pastor's like, how many students are in that class? And he's like, I don't know, 80. And he's like, and you can bet that the rest of them are never going to set foot in a church. And I was like, really? Like
in America,
79 of 80 people are not religious? I don't think so. I don't know about other atheists. I don't know what you're up to, but I'm in churches all the time. I'm in churches to look at cool historical churches. I'm in churches for weddings. I'm in churches for other services. I don't know. It's not like I'm not like scared of church.
Exactly. I think again that's why I think the writers and creators of this film has never met anybody outside of
right.
Well, white Christians in the U.S. because I don't think they've even talked to somebody who don't have a belief. Again,
right.
Atheism is not anti-God. Atheism is just personally choosing to not believe in God. But it doesn't mean that we walk by a church and sneer at it. Oh, and that reminds me, if you like this video and you want to hear the entire uncut 90-minute long podcast version, go check out our Patreon. Links down below in the description. Anyways.
This movie is very, what some would call traditional, what others would call sexist. One thing that happens throughout this film, and this just follows a certain strain of Christian rhetoric, as I understand it, is that the wisdom of God constantly throughout this movie, or the power of God, is like beamed down through human vessels to do good works in the world, but it is always men. In every relationship, in every part of this ensemble movie, the wisdom of God comes through men and is then received by women. And I understand that that's like a perspective that some people have, and I'm not going to try to argue you out of it, but I do want to say that when you're watching a film, it makes for a very unsatisfying experience because you basically have all the male characters who have power and know things and exude things that are acting upon others, and then you just kind of have, the rest, the women, the brown people, the Chinese people, etc., who are just sort of acted upon and have this wisdom, like, granted to them. That's a dynamic that happens in a lot of genres. It's not something that only this movie is guilty of, but it does not make for a good time.
All this stuff is temporary. The money, fame, success. Jesus, that's eternal.
We follow this vegan reporter who is like an ambush interviewer, supposedly. But her ambush interviews are basically like, she jumps out from behind a wall and she's like, how come you're such a fucking dick? It's essentially what her interviews are throughout the movie.
It's so weird because it is it's a straw man argument in this scene. Because, okay, are there annoying vegans? Yes. Definitely. Are there awful people whose entire personality revolves around being offended? Oh yeah, definitely. Those kind of people exist on every side of every position. But in this one, she is just like an amalgamation, every annoying aspect from the internet, pushed together into one person, and then randomly ambushes this couple, and her interview, quote unquote, just kind of ends with like, what about your prayer that you do on your own show? Don't you care about people offended by that? That's like it's too easy.
She, twice in the movie, she basically exists as a springboard for the other person to like look cool and be like kind and be depicted as as like kind of being polite and kind and happy and juxtaposed with this like shrieking awful harpy of a woman. She doesn't ask questions, she just insults people.
And then the couple that she ambushes are just like cartoonishly calm and nice. Like Ned Flanders, who is basically a caricature, but this movie seems to take seriously.
Yes. This movie's trying to get out ahead of me and calling it sexist because they go out of their way to show that actually the atheists are the real sexists throughout the film. So this is the first of many instances of that where she's like, oh, I thought your wife would be barefoot and pregnant at home, which is just such an inappropriate thing for any person to say in any context.
Has always existed with no beginning and no end. But the Bible disagreed. In the 1920s, Belgian astronomer Georges Lemaître, a theist, who's actually also...
What's a theist?
Vast majority of what happens in all three debates is that he quotes someone and then he quotes the Bible and he's like, as you can see, these two things sound the same, and then like mic drop moment. And it's actually the entire movie, which again I didn't remember, is actually just him and Sorbo like battling it out with quotes. The way Caroline put it was it's like two like quote listicles just like battling each other. Like it's like Godzilla versus Kong, except it's just like two rampaging, and they're like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, or whatever. But it really is. They just quote random people for the entire thing. There's no argument. The big dramatic beat is that Kevin Sorbo's like, well, apparently you haven't heard this quote from Stephen Hawking. And then he reads out a quote, and then he like explicitly makes it an appeal to authority by being like, are you saying that you're smarter than someone that held the chair that Isaac Newton once held? Like, it's a completely nonsensical discussion in every possible way. And these explicit appeals to authority are exactly the sort of thing that a professor like Kevin Sorbo, except a good one, is here to teach you not to do.
Think of Jesus as my friend.
You think Jesus is God?
I don't want anyone to get talked out of believing in him just because some professor thinks they should.
This is the scene that made me give up on the movie. Yeah, so we have a scene where I guess essentially it is a bit of the white man saves the savage soul moment, where the heathen communist Chinese guy from the PRC learns that, as the movie says, Jesus is this guy's friend and is son of God, and he seems surprised by that. I don't know. Again, like I guess they're making it so that like anybody outside of the U.S. just has no idea what Christianity is completely blind to it.
Who is this Jesus?
Look, as a guy born in China, or sorry, the PRC, we know what the Christians believe. The missionaries have done their damage over the last few centuries. I know what it is, okay?
It takes a while for this to fully kick in, but like both the main guys in this movie, him and the pastor, eventually, by the end of the movie, have just like an ethnic sidekick. And yeah, this movie, it starts out being funny and then it slowly just feels a little ickier and a little ickier.
It is that like that out of touch mentality of everybody wants to be American.
Yeah, it's not even really about Christianity. It's about like everyone wants to be this.
Being the white Christian American is the ultimate end game for everybody.
Mm-hmm. There is an ensemble cast of characters, but actually the movie has no respect for any of them whatsoever, except to the extent that they will move closer towards the perspective of the main character.
你这样做会影响你弟弟出国留学的机会，你知道吗？
但係我覺得呢樣嘢對我嚟講係好重要㗎。
好了，行了，別說了。
First thing I want to point out is that the son is speaking Cantonese and the father speaking Mandarin.
Really?
Yes, they're speaking two completely different languages.
Why would that even happen?
But this phone call is going to occur a few times for the rest of the movie, I think, right? And I'm guessing the and I feel like the point of it is that the son is starting to be persuaded and converted to Christianity, while the father is just like staunchly communist, Maoist, red China, yellow peril tide, kind of whatever you want to call it, and it's just so angry at his son for even like wasting an ounce of time to learn about the religion of other people.
That's right. And then he again reveals himself as a godless heathen because he's like, what does the professor say? And he says, the kid's like, he says there's no God. And he's like, oh, well, just say what the professor says then, because he's unscrupulous, godless communist. And this again is kind of a central motif, I guess, of this movie, is along with showing that the students are all happy to sign away that God is dead at the start of the movie and stuff. There's this kind of implication that like the evil professor is like controlling everyone and he's the authority, like forcing people to not believe in God. And then similarly, like, so we see all these different routes by which the evil professor saying there is no God combines with the outside pressures like godless communists and stuff to also say that there's no God, to raise the stakes of what our young hero is fighting against, I guess. But again, every scene clearly reinforces that the main guy's perspective is right and everyone else is wrong. So it never feels like the drama is increasing because the movie's at the same time telling us always, but they're wrong. This is the bad guy. So it doesn't it doesn't function in the way that drama is supposed to function.
Well, and the other thing is that like they try to, the movie, okay, so normally when you have an antagonist or a villain in a movie, you showcase that they are the villain and that they are wrong by the things that they do that are related to the things that they're wrong about. And
right,
it
that
usually has an effect.
Their philosophy extends to a practice that is evil. Yeah.
Exactly. But these people, they have a difference of opinion, of belief than our main character, but that is separate from their day-to-day life villainy. It's
That's
like,
right. That's a very good point.
Completely disconnected. So it's just like, so basically what the movie is doing is that it goes, these people believe something different. I can't make that look bad, so let me just make the person look bad. Therefore,
right.
by association, what they believe must be bad.
God is not dead.
God's not dead.
God's not dead. God's not dead. God's not dead. God's not dead.
It is, and it was very effective as a propaganda film. This was an extremely successful movie on a very small budget. None of the text chains ever made it to me, but I'm sure a bunch of people were out texting each other, "God's not dead." So, score 2 for God's not dead. This launched a franchise.
That's true, yeah. So I guess as a propaganda to not convert others, but to reinforce existing believers to make them feel, I guess, good and superior, which I imagine it did its job. So I guess the movie succeeded. You're right.
For what I'm assuming is I hope not like too huge segment of the intended audience. Some people, yeah, I assume were just kind of pleased by seeing their worldview represented in a movie, in a theater, in this kind of play. That's the way that I saw the movie talked about. I remember a lot was like, yeah, we finally have like one of our movies in theater, like something expressing our viewpoint. So that's why I was interested in like, maybe that really is like, maybe every single Hollywood movie feels like this to some people, and therefore this felt like a big win. Maybe, I don't know.
Is there a atheist propaganda movie? Does that even exist? Because like atheist propaganda would be any movie that isn't religious themed or has no religion at all.
I would love if anyone in the comments, if you can suggest a movie that is like this movie from the atheist perspective, or even from any kind of like anti-Christian perspective, that would be really interesting to watch.
Technically speaking, any movie that don't feature any religious theme or symbols at all would be an atheist movie, right?
Right. Which
I guess Predator, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Next week, we are doing a movie that, it's based on a game that when it first came out, the Christians were very against. So I guess we're still relatively in that theme. Yeah, we're doing year 2000's Dungeons and Dragons in celebration of the new D&D movie that's coming out soon.
It has no dungeons, right? Is that the joke with the movie?
I don't even remember. Does it have dragons even? I hope so.
I think it has all I know is it has Jeremy Irons, so it can't be a total wash.
We're done. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week with Dungeons and Dragons.